Hey guys, how's it going? My name is David. I'm the director at Ichigoichie, and today we're going to be talking about some of the new gameplay features and what makes our title Backbeat different from other puzzle and strategy games, and how this game is built on the rules of musical theory. I'm really excited to talk to you today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys try the demo out later and then get some feedback on it. So let's dive right in. So the first thing I should say is that at Ichigoichie, what we do is we build music games. And we build music games that are built on a set of rules and design principles that allow the players to create music and to be creative in the way they solve the challenges inside of our games. That isn't to say that we're making rhythm games. We're not building something like Guitar Hero. But what we want to do is we want to take elements of musical play and then add them into our games so that different challenges that you have are based on navigating physical space, or maybe it's time or something like that. And what you have to do is solve these kind of challenges, whether they're action or strategy based. But the success or failure of these things is built on the rules of music. So what we want to do is try to work in this musical theory's basic principles into the game. So time is a big factor here, obviously. In our first title, Hexagroove, that was an RTS where you had to combine EDM loops responding to the wishes that crowd had to keep them dancing in a club. So the time here is a real-time thing where you're getting these prompts, you have to respond, you have multiple choices, and some of those choices are based on strategic things, like there's a buff or a nerf, on the way the energy levels of the game are going to be changed, on which loop you choose to use. Another thing is that there's also a personal preference, because there are multiple different kinds of musical things, and there's more than one solution to give the crowd something that they're going to like and they're going to respond. In Backbeat, the concept of time is one that's built around both music and also time in terms of the past, the present, and the future. There's 4 different timelines of how the different characters need to be synchronized in order to solve these puzzles in Backbeat. And what you do in one timeline affects others potentially. So if you could imagine that we're robbing a bank, and I'm the driver of the getaway car, and you're bringing the money out of the bank. Now, if I start the engine of the car too early while I'm waiting for you, maybe we run out of gas while we're trying to escape, and then the cops catch us. On the other hand, if I start the engine too late, you run out, you got the money, jump in the car, but then I have trouble starting the engine, and then the security guards catch up, and we're also going to get caught then. So how doing something in one timeline affects others and then relates in the ultimate success is something that we have woven into this game. So Backbeat is a game of resources and constraints, and we're going to jump right in now and look at how these manifest themselves in the game. So let's start. I have some test levels that I've made for this conversation here today. We're going to start with this one called Premade Path. Now, Backbeat is a game where you have a number of resource constraints, and you have a limited number of turns that you have to solve. So you see this meter in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, and this is the timeline. And the timeline shows how many turns have been consumed for each character. And the overall simplified goal is that you need to have all the characters in the target area before you run out of turns. So here we have 2 different characters, and they're already progressed into the level. This is a pre-made path. Some of these paths are made by us, level designers, to help get you started with a puzzler, to teach you a basic concept, but also that when you're playing it yourself and modifying these paths, they're going to be retained. So if you ever want to stop the game or need to take a break, you're going to come back and it's going to be just the way that you left it. And you have infinite control over these paths. So what we can do is we can rewind time. Right now I'm selecting Watts. She is the purple character, and she has the purple path. If I hit the B button, then I can rewind time. And you see the timeline is going shorter. And at the same point, you see the other character is kind of backing up. So he's got this green path. He's gone all the way to the end of the goal. And he's already in the target area. But at every point in time, we're evaluating the way time is running for the current character. So if he has things he's done in his time on already, then we're going to lerp to that point and evaluate it there. This can create problems later, because maybe something looked fine when you were solving it with one character, But then when you use another character, you might have an adverse effect which causes temporal paradox, and then it would be impossible for that character to have continued all the way to the end. So I'm going to rewind him too. I'm going to rewind her. And now what we have is they're both at the starting timeline, and we need to get to the goal area before we run out of turns. When you take one step, the characters move a different amount of tiles. Now, this is Watts and Toshi. They're the two first characters you run into in the game. And they usually move 2 tiles in the map. So they move 2 tiles in the map, and they consume a finite number of beats with each one of those turns. How many beats, musical beats, they consume is based on the tempo of the level and the level design and how we decided to slice up the audio. The way the audio works is actually very interesting. So if you go and check one of our other talks we're going to be doing this week about the dynamic music in Backbeat, I recommend you check that out if you're curious how that works and what kind of features we have there for you. So I'm going to go over to Toshi, and I go back to Watts. When I change the characters, I'm lerping to the point in time which they have advanced all the way. So that's either going to perform a rewind or a fast forward operation, moving through time. So when he takes 2 steps, he plays this little organ riff. Let's see, he moves 2 tiles just like Watts does with each move. But if you notice, they're standing catty-corner from each other right now, which means that they're on different physical locations. This way you could imagine them as being kind of like bishops in chess, where they move similarly, but the places they can reach is different, so the solutions to getting them to the end is different as well. Alright, he's in the goal. So now she's in the goal. Now both of the characters are in the goal, and we've done it within the amount of turns that were allocated in the puzzle, so now we can complete the puzzle. And one of the things about Backbeat is when you're in the end goal area and you've successfully cleared the puzzle, you get to hear a song that's built back from these individual things. Now for the purposes of demonstration, this is a very simple example and it won't really sound like a full song, but let's listen to it anyway. So that was a neat little riff. And the path that I took is what generated that music. If you solve the puzzle in a different way with a different path, different music is generated based on some improvisations, and the song is kind of customized. So the way that you solve it or I solve it produces different kind of music, which is a nice way to get some customization. All right, so that's the basic principles. The characters are going to move a finite number of turns, and you have to get to the target area before those turns run out, and each turn is mapped to a number of musical beats. So let's move into the next thing I want to show you with the mechanics, which is called keys and doors, something that we call it internally. So keys and doors is a kind of environment obstacle, and this environment obstacle is something where you have to work together to get people to the door, to the goal area. And you see in the UI has these little dots and triangles floating around now, and these chevrons are animating on the floor. And what this is showing that we have some ways to interact with the environment. And we're going to do a solo at each one of these to help our friend out. So there's a limited window of time. So Watts here is stuck in this little room in the back of what looks like one of our arcades. So she's going to try to go through the door, but she can't. The door is closed. But what we can do is we can go over to Toshi, who is next to this giant lever with a giant triangle floating on top. Ominous. So if we go up here and stand on this tile, we see that the hand icon appears, which means he can interact with the environment here. This is a key. So when I push the interaction button, now it's going to open the door for a limited period of time. So there's 4 bars now that Watts has to make it through that door. And she has made it through. So that period in the timeline where it's wiggly is the time the door will be open. Now, talking about how you could cause a temporal continuity, for example. We've talked before about the effects of one timeline versus another. So this is a very contrived example, but for example, if I undid this, then what I get is I get a notification that, oh, now in my timeline I have not opened the door. I did not use the key, which means there's no way Watts could have gone through the door, and then she's kicked back to the point where she is on the other side of that obstacle. This is something you need to consider later in the game because the levels become very complicated, and there's places where maybe opening one door might close another, and then perhaps some guards are going to come pouring through, which up to that point had been sectioned off in another area, and then they could bump into somebody that previously could have gotten past a clear pathway, but now that pathway is obstructed with these guards pouring out or something like that. So part of the challenge in the puzzles is figuring out how your effects, how the things that you do in one time are going to affect the others. So let's go back and open that door again for Watts. And we'll get her through. Okay. And now Toshi can go around. Oh no, but now Toshi's stuck too. He's got this guard standing in his way, so he can't get through. So what we can do now, Watts is standing over here by this arcade coin machine. And if she plays some musical solo in front of it, it's going to cause it to trigger a distraction, which will cause the guard to follow on his path. You can see the guard standing there has this gray patrol path. So when she interacts on it, he is going to go and push that other character out of the way and come after her, which will open the path for Toshi to make it to the goal. Now, I want to set up our solos so they're a bit cleaner. You can see how they're overlapped right now. So if I take her, and maybe if I wait until his solo is done, and then start her solo. Yeah, I have enough turns. Now I get him across. And now I can get her across. So now I have both characters in the goal, and I've used these two different keys to unblock two different obstacles and get the characters in. And when you're interacting with the world, you're creating a musical solo for a durated 4-bar musical bar period of time. So let's hear what that sounds like. Cool. So again, these are just very simple levels that are not reflective of the whole song or how the music sounds when you have all the characters together and backing beats and things like that. But we've seen now how the keys and doors are one more level of challenge that you have in the puzzles. So next, we're going to start talking about musical metrics. Now, this is something that's very similar to the way that Backbeat operates. Hexagroove. So Hexagroove is our first game, and Hexagroove is a game where we are grading how well you can create EDM in a club. And we do it by giving you a bunch of time-based prompts, and the response to those prompts and how well you play by them to create music that flows makes the music even better. So you're going to end up with somewhere between a C and an S rank based on these 6 rules of dance music that we called them in that first game. Now there's something similar here. So we have 4 different musical metrics in Backbeat that we're talking about when you're playing in a band. And being in a band, and especially live music, is about making your partner look good. So helping them show off, not doing those solos at the same point in time. Don't interrupt someone else when they're doing really well, and then supporting them maybe with a comp or some other thing, way to make them shine even better. So the music in Backbeat is all built on the changes in time. So when you change a direction in one of the levels, then the music is going to change to one of the other improvisations. And the timing of when you change direction then becomes very important because it's going to make the music change in a different way. So this works into the first 2 principles, stagger and align, which are rules about the timing of when you can move through the space. So let's go into this test level and check it out. All right, so I'm going to reset the puzzle again. All right, so we have Watts and Toshi again. This time we're in a video store, and what we have is we have this meter in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And what this meter is it's showing the first two musical metrics you run into in the game of Backbeat, which is stagger and line. Stagger says you cannot have two characters changing direction at the same point in time. If you do that, then the stagger resource will go down. You have a limited amount of this. But if you can offset the changes in direction so they happen at different points in time, then the stagger resource will increase. So, for example, if I go straight with Watts and then make a left-hand turn. And now with Toshi, if I... Actually, I'm putting myself in the corner now, doing the opposite kind of musical metric. So let me talk about both of them now. So the second one is called line. And line is you can only change direction on a bar increment, which is these vertical lines in the timeline. So if I change right now, I'm between 2 points in the timeline. I'm between two of those vertical lines in the timeline, and you can see the meter is going to go down, that single triangle in the lower part of the meter. But if I wait a turn, and now I'm on a bar in time, I can turn left, and it's going to go up. And you can see it's going to get yellow because that my align resource is now filled, which is great because you want to have all your resources filled because that's going to get you the S+ rank at the end of the level. Now the downside is, the converse, is that when I'm making this move, you can see that the other meter is going down. That's the stagger. And why is that? So if you look at the timeline, Watts has already changed direction at this point in time. So if I add a change in direction for Toshi at the same point, I'm going to lose that stagger resource. So what I need to do is I need to offset. If I added a rest by using the Y button, and then I change, now my stagger resource will go up. But as you will notice, now I'm not doing it on the bar interval, so now my align resource is going down. So what I have to do is, within this limited number of turns, I got to get to the target area, but I also have to be very cognizant of the timing at which I change direction to the puzzle, and knowing when to rest, when to turn, when to go straight affects the result of the puzzle, because the music will be better for it if you can follow these rules. It'll still sound pretty good even if you don't follow them perfectly, but it will sound best if you can do these. So let's see here. Now I don't have enough line, so I'm going to wait a turn. Almost out of a line. Alright, let's go over to Toshi now and see what I can do. Well, that's good. So I'm going to get, this is a good move, because right now you can see both the align and the stagger resource are going up. So, but now my line will go down, so wait another time. Wait another time. Now I don't have enough turns. I'm one turn too short. So this is about the trade-offs of knowing when to economize those resources and when to follow. So if I didn't wait quite so much and took a gamble, but now I don't have the line. So Watts has a couple more. So bumped into a bug then. That's not good. So the point here is that we need to be able to get to stagger and line and maximize these resources while getting to the end. And if you can follow those rules, it requires a different kind of thinking, but the plus side is that it's another level of challenge to the puzzle, and the music gets even better for it. So this is how we start teaching the player about changes in music and when the timing is best. Now next we're going to look at the next two metrics, solo and assist, which are different metrics that talk about when you can interact with the environment. So let me prep that level for you. Now we're going to look at the second two metrics, solo and assist. And solo assist are about making your partner look good. And in music, you don't want to be doing something really fancy while a friend of yours is playing a musical solo. So the timing of when you use these solos is important. Now here in this level, we have different objectives and things we need to pick up. So for example, we have Watts, and she's going to go over here, and she's ends up perfectly to pet this dog. So we're going to wait until we're on a bar increment, following that align and stagger rule, and we're going to do an interaction there. Now Toshi if he comes up, he can get this water bottle. Now, if he waited, for example, for a while, now his solo, his interaction is overlapped with hers a little bit, and it's going to make the music sound not so nice. It's going to clash, and that's why our solo metric, which is the first one, here with these two squiggly lines next to each other, has gone down as a result. So what we want to do is we want to set it up so he could interact, and that solo ends right when we hand off the next one to Watts. If you look at the timeline now, we have the two wiggled lines and the two sections of that blend perfectly. So now our solo has gone up. Now, if we take Chaz, for example, who moves one tile at a time, he can get most anywhere. And now he is over here at this water bottle, and he's at just the right moment in time now, where he is going to have an opportunity to solo at the same time as Watts. And normally this would be bad, because we said we don't want to have any kind of interaction overlapping, no solos overlapping in the timeline. But if you have a melodic player and a rhythmic player, and they can have their two solos overlined perfectly, then you actually build something really cool, because then Watts, as the rhythmic player, will back Chaz while he's doing his sax solo. So that will cause our assist metric to go up, our resource. So by doing this now, you see we have the two wiggled areas of his and hers interaction at just the same point in time, and the meter in the lower left-hand corner, or excuse me, the lower part of the musical meter, lower right-hand corner of the screen, has gone up. Now with Josh, he ends up at this gas generator at just the right time. Now right now he's standing right here in the middle of two different solos. So if we do this, we're going to fail, because the solo gauge, the solo meter is not doesn't have enough. So this is the point in time where I need to wait. But we already have Chaz and Watts soloing at this point in time. So this would not be a good time to solo either. So what I need to do now is wait until everyone is done and do it after them. And let's get Watts up here. Let's see. And now she has to wait until he's done. And she can just barely make it into the goal. Let's see how old Toshi's doing. So there's a dog up here, and then what we will do is we can pet the dog. Now again, if we did this like right here, look how big our solo meter dropped. Our line went up because we were comping each other, but our solo score went down. So what we need to do is, if we wait until here, now those two are going to work together much better musically. Okay, so this time I couldn't get a solution where I had the perfect satisfying of both of these goals, but I had something that was pretty good, because I have a lot of my solos being handed off, and this is where I'm going to stop for today. And if you try out some of the other puzzles, there are solutions that will produce different kind of ranks between C and S+, and I look forward to seeing all you guys try those out. So let's hear what these solos sound like together. Josh's solo. Nice. Pet the dog, get the bottle here. B. Alright, I'll take it. It's a live stream. So this shows how there's two more metrics, and in the latest levels of the game, you have to work with all four of these metrics together. So these large intricate puzzles where you're opening doors for some people, you're collecting interjectives, you're solving different points in time to help get everyone to the goal, and you're trying to maintain these resources so they all complement each other really well. Now the last thing that I'll show you very briefly before we end today is about power moves. So on top of the musical metrics and working on the timing for those different things, the characters each have their own special power move, which they can use. They develop later in the game. And these power moves are what further sets them apart from each other. So they don't only move differently, they also have different ways they can help in the environment. And each one of these is useful in different kinds of situations. So the canonical example here is that we have Chaz and Josh, and they're both stuck back here in this corner of like some VIP area or like a waiting pen or something, and they can't get out. But with Josh, when his power meter is full, I can break through the wall and knock open a hole. So this is good because not only does he get out, but also Chaz can make it through into the path and get through. Now the thing is, now Josh is kind of stuck because he can't get by. He's like a tank, and he moves a long distance with every one of his movements, and in that sense he's very weak when it comes to guards. But what Chaz can do, Chaz has his super sax, and he can blow a guard off of their patrol path for a limited amount of time. So we'll see if this is enough to get Josh out of here. No. Push him back a bit more. And now Josh could escape to the goal. And Chaz can sneak by. Alright, so we got both of them there. Fantastic. Now, with the other two, Watts has this move where she can do a walking bass. And what she can do with that is she can tiptoe. Normally she always moves 2 tiles at a time. But now she moves 1 tile at a time, so she's a lot like Chaz. But with the added benefit of she consumes a lot less time in the timeline. So each of these steps will carry her much farther. So she's very useful as like a vanguard. You want to send her in early to a mission, and she could grab objectives and come back and help other people out. So she's very, very useful in the sense with her walking bass, which got her, you can see she covered the entire distance of the map in less than half of the turns that were there. Now finally Toshi, he has a Powerslyde, which allows him to warp through an enemy. And one of the big things about this is not only can he get through a guard if he's lined up properly, you also see he moves 3 tiles instead of 2. So this has offset him on the grid. So he can now reach areas that maybe only Watts could reach or he couldn't reach before. So using the Powerslyde to reach obstacles, objectives and keys and things like that is useful. So you might want to ration that and find the best time to use it. All of these power moves have a cooldown, so you can't use them whenever you want. And sometimes maybe it's only 1 time per level. You need to really think about the best time to take advantage of these. So let's listen to what the sound effects are like when we're doing these power moves. I think this music could be a little bit chaotic, but I'm curious to see how it turns out. Not bad. Okay, so that's the last of the examples of the game mechanics I wanted to show you today. We talked about how this game is based on time and resources. It's a limited number of turns. Each character moves a certain number of beats musically, and then that ties into when is a good time to do different things, because all the music in the game is generated from the character movement. So when is it a good time to change direction? When is it a good time to use a power move? When is it a good time to interact with the environment to help someone out or pick up an objective? And that's what the musical metrics are, these 4 musical resources that you have. And you also have a handful of power moves that the characters can use to further find additional solutions to the puzzles that you're going to run into. And there are multiple solutions to all the maps that we have, and you can get between a C and an S+ rank depending on how well you follow the resource management of these things. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to find unique and interesting ways to solve these puzzles. So thanks a lot for joining us today and hearing me talk about the mechanics that are in the full version of the game. As I mentioned now, we have a free demo which is available on Steam. You can play it on PC and Mac. And we hope that you try it out. Tell us what you think. Wishlist the game so you know when we're going to be releasing, hopefully the next few months. And we're also on social media and happy to meet you there. So you can follow us on Twitter at Ichigoichie Inc. or on Instagram at Ichigoichie Games. And we look forward to seeing what you can produce with our titles. And thank you so much. Have a great day. Cheers.